flags, raise the flags. Hit them fast, secure the bag. Don't even blink, make them walk the plank. Light them up, let's make them sing. Fire the cannons, fire the cannons, fire the cannons. On Bucs, yeah, we on. Fire the cannons, fire the cannons, fire the cannons. The whole field's already on. Let me give you 55 reasons why this is our season. Palm trees breezing, opposing teams bleeding.
All right, welcome back to Buc What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Buc What You Heard, and you know what I always say, you follow me, I'm going to follow you back. And I am joined by special guest co-host here, my man Chris from NYGiantsRush, New York Giants Rush. I want to make sure I get it right.
You got it.
Really great content on YouTube. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Gene. Thanks for having me on. Really thrilled to be on with you.
Yeah, you know what, man? I've always believed that football is a microcosm of the world, man. You meet people from different places, and you always find common ground, or it's just fun to enjoy the game and get your head away from a lot of the stuff that's going on from day to day. So again, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Love the show. Love the content.
Yeah, thank you, Gene. Appreciate it.
So tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and kind of what you're working on right now.
Yeah, sure. So it's NYGiantsRush. Those of you who want to check out some Giant content, Craig Santucci runs NYGiantsRush. We have about maybe 6 content creators on with the group at NYGiantsRush. We're on every Monday night, 8 p.m. We also have Rush Hour, which is tonight with Nikki at 8 p.m. That's all NFL talk, not just Giants. And then Adriana, who just came on board, it's Rush Ramble tomorrow night, and that's at 7 o'clock as well. So we have a few shows, but please go to NYGiantsRush on Twitter. You can see the content, and also on Instagram. But yeah, those of you who are not Giants fans, obviously this is a Buck show. Check Nikki out tonight, and Dan, that's right after Gene's show, and that's 8 o'clock going live on YouTube, and that's Rush Hour. Tonight it's AFC South. We have some AFC South panel content creators, and some great all-around NFL talk tonight.
Yeah, man. The show last week was really good, Nikki. I thought they did a great job covering the NFC South, and I thought everybody they had on was really good, and it kind of gives you some insight.
That's
and
right.
Even though we're not playing each other this year, I've really liked what you're doing, and I really appreciate that.
Well, I do too, and I started, getting with your tweets a couple weeks ago. So thanks to Craig, sending some stuff over to you, and I wouldn't have found you. So we appreciate that. I'm going to check out your shows too.
All right.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to start off and just have you talk a little bit about the Giants and what they have going on right now.
Yeah. So going into the season, I mean, year 2 for Brian Daboll and Joe Shane. And like a lot of Giant fans, we could have actually a better team and a better offense this year. But the record may not even reflect that. It's a tougher schedule. I think we were ahead of schedule last year, being making the playoffs and winning 9 games. So I mean, this year it could be 8 wins. I mean, who knows? It's a tough schedule, but I like the fact that the system's still in place with Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka and Wink Martindale and the pieces that came in like a Waller. So I think building the chemistry, it's a young team, tough schedule. But once again, I think we can hopefully put those bad 10 years behind us, minus 2016 in the rearview mirror, and now move forward and just be a little bit more than just respectable. I mean, that's the goal. We were basically a laughingstock for almost 10 years, and I like to be at least relevant. I mean, that's what I've said for the past few years. Let's just be relevant and not be laughed at and joked at. So
it's interesting. Your quarterback situation. In the legend of Danny Dimes started in Tampa with that game, that breakout game that he had, and that's kind of where the nickname started. And I've kind of followed him off and on, and wanted to get your honest opinion about him. Is he somebody, when you look at the other quarterbacks that you have in your division, is he somebody that you feel that can put you at the top of the NFC East and put you in that position to where you could be successful on through the playoffs and possibly, contending for a Super Bowl? I mean,
I believe so, Gene. Even when you look at the end of Eli's career, he didn't have the supporting cast around him. Eli didn't do very well. But when you look at the quarterbacks right now in the NFC East, they're good. I mean, listen, I say what you want about Dak. and Hurts played well last year. But it's they had the players, they've had receivers, they've had a great offensive line, and that's one thing Jones has been lacking. I mean, last year for the naysayers against Jones, he pretty much carried the offense along with Barkley with nothing more to show, with an offensive line that was probably average at best. So I want to see him with those pieces, solidifying the right tackle position with a second year in Evan Neal. Andrew Thomas is coming to his own. That left guard spot is still iffy, but I think with the receivers, a Paris Campbell, a Waller, even a James Crowder and a Shepard. I mean, I think the depth, they may not have that stud at receiver, but I think they have depth. And I want to see Jones with the supporting cast, and I think he'll be fine. Not saying he's going to be a great quarterback, but I think he could be a very good NFL quarterback. If I had to say 10 to 15 range, top half of the league. Top 10, maybe at some point, but I'm going to be a conservative. I'm going to say 10 to 15 range I could see Jones being.
So, when you look at the team, I'm looking on offense, and you guys have, like you mentioned, Darren Waller, Bellinger, and Paris Campbell are some names to look for in camp. But when you look at this team as a whole, do you think the defense, is this more of a defensive team or more of an offensive team?
It's interesting you bring that up, because at the linebacker spot before Okereke was really just the the interior line that cornerbacks were, you had Adoree, but with Leonard Williams, Leonard Williams was really drawing a blank here.
No,
what's that?
Not Kayvon Thibodeau.
No, you have Kayvon Thibodeau, you had Adoree, you had Leonard Williams. You had just a stout line. But I think now, you bring in the fact with the offense. I think the offense is going to be a little bit better than the defense.
Yeah. Now, does that concern you when you look at teams like the Eagles and the offensive weapons that they have? And as much as I hate to talk about trash ass Dallas, but Dallas has some weapons too that can really change the tone of a game. Does your defense, do you think, with the pieces that you've brought in, your general manager, he's done some things this year that I wasn't expecting, with some of the moves in the draft. And just when you look at that team, does that defense, do you think, facing division rivals twice a year, do you think they can stand up throughout the season, stand up with that?
Well, in the middle with Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence, the problem, with those guys was they never got a rest. They played almost like 80 or 90% of the snaps. So Now you're bringing in Ashawn Robinson. Your fan favorite Nacho comes in, right? So a great run stopper. So I think the depth and back of those guys is going to help, because the Giants were 31st against the run. Dexter and Leo could only do so much. And I think with a linebacker or Okereke, we can shed blocks. He can scrape. That's going to help as well. So I think the defense should be actually a little better, especially in the running game. I mean, they got chewed up. The Eagles, you saw in that playoff game, just abused them. And I think, it's still the old adage. You got to stop the run. Run first. Right. Stop the run. And I think the Giants and Wink, they know that was a priority in the offseason. And hopefully it's been addressed.
Yeah. And again, that was a nice pickup, getting Nacho on that team. He was one of my favorites. I thought he was very stout against the run, and that's kind of what you need there. And just kind of looking through some of the running backs that you have with Pollard, with Dallas, and trying to think who else outside. I mean,
DeAndre Swift went to the Eagles. That was a good pickup. He does get hurt quite a bit, but he's a heck of a pickup.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just it's the way I see it. I think that the Giants, if they can bring everything together, I think that they will be competitive in that division. Do you feel like the coach, people have bought into the coach's philosophy? I mean, that's pretty important right there. Do you think the players as a whole have bought into that philosophy that he brings?
Absolutely, because the one thing you see with Dable, he's almost like your parent. He's almost like your dad. He lays down the law when he has to, but he also reinforces positivity. You could see he builds them up, right? He builds up the players, but he breaks them down when he has to. So he's not just constantly hammering them, weighing them out. There's that relationship there, almost like a father-son, you see, where, hey, when you're doing a great job, he's going to give you the pat on the back. When you screw up, he's going to let you know too. And I think he calls it right down the middle. And the fact that it's the same coaching staff for the second year is just going to do wonders for the team in general in terms of the concepts, the scheme. They're not learning a whole nother system. And things go well. Kafka could be on his way to a head coaching job next year. Yeah. But the nice part is you have Dable and the Kafka system together. So although Kafka may leave at some point, that system still kind of remains the same. Maybe the language changes a little bit, but I would think that Dable, would put his print on that offense even a little bit more and still keep everything consistent.
So real quick question. I know this is because this is the off season. This is the best time to talk about these kind of things. Any upcoming contracts or any outside of Saquon? I don't know what, and I'm not sure what the situation is with him. Are we close to seeing him where everything is settled? And they may have happened and I just don't know, but I just wanted to kind of follow up and see, where does he sit? I mean, is he an integral part of that offense, or where does he fit in all this?
Yeah, he's absolutely an integral part of this offense. I mean, he really is what makes this offense run along with Jones, but even more so with Barkley setting up, that running game. So the talks actually continued, I believe, earlier this week or late last week. So they know July 17th is coming up. The franchise tag is around $10 million and change. So they got to get a deal done before July 17th, or he does or does not play under the tender. And there's no more negotiating. So I can't see Barkley leaving $10 million on the table. I mean, we go back to Le'Veon Bell's situation. He regrets that. I think the running back market is what it is. We've seen that. But I think when the Giants offered him that $14 million, $13.5 million, he didn't take it. Maybe he regrets it, but I want to say that's going to be the ballpark. But once again, like all these players, because it's a short-lived career, they want the guaranteed contract. So I think that's a big part of it, whatever that is, 30 million, 25 million. I think guarantees is really what probably Saquon is looking at. But I anticipate this getting wrapped up, because if it doesn't, I don't think the Giants want to carry 10 million on the cap for 1 year either. They could prorate that contract and maybe they only pay him 4 million this year. Whereas if you do give him that tag, if he signs it, you're carrying 10 million. And there's going to be injuries. There's going to be guys you're going to have to sign at the end of the cuts, because that still plays into your cap. You don't get relief just because somebody gets hurt. You need that money to sign guys as you're moving along in the season. And the Giants are usually good with about five players usually from that last week of cuts that the Giants usually make. So that 53 is not always the 53, as you know, Gene. Yeah. There's always a turnover that week before the first game.
So I wanted to follow that question up with, Saquon Barkley, and it's noted his durability questions. Is this a concern when he's looking at this? He's looking for a max contract, and you look at his body of work, and I'm not taking anything away from him. When he's been healthy, he's been on the field, he's been a monster. My question is, do you take into consider the durability aspect of it? Because you still don't know, where you've had like 2 consecutive seasons or 3 of him being healthy. You still don't know what you have with him, just because of all the different injuries he's sustained.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And I think behind closed doors, Giants management, they need to really take a hard look at that. And that's why I think with this contract, the Giants would like that last year to be kind of an option and not be nailed to it, where they can get out of the contract at some point. Because last year, Barkley played phenomenal, but it was his first year where he was healthy the whole year. So you've only had 1 year out of the 4 years that he's been in the league or playing that he's been healthy. So I think
yes, I mean, and not taking anything away from him. And I realize it's a business. We have to look at kind of both sides. For him, it's the injuries he sustained. He wants to get that big bag. This is his opportunity to get that last big bag, because if anything else happens, I doubt that he would get anything close to what he's trying to ask for right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Is there anybody else that's kind of in that situation right now?
In the league, you're saying, Gene?
And for the Giants.
for the Giants. So Adoree Jackson, he's coming up on his last year. So actually next year, I think they owe him a lot of money. So I don't know if they're going to. I want to say it's $14 million. So I'm not sure Adoree's back next year. So I think that was key to get a guy like Deonte Banks to come in as a rookie, get his experience, and then if they move on from Adoree, that'll solidify as the number one corner at that point. And then I would think a few of the guys they drafted later rounds, or they go back in the draft next year. Cornerback, as you know, Gene, is probably one of the toughest spots to fill because you just don't know what to expect. The Giants have been through the Eli Apples, DeAndre Bakers. We've been through so many corners, and it's a sore spot. So I think we hit it with Deonte. He's got a great attitude, but we have to see. But the corner has always been an issue on the other side for the past few years for the Giants.
Yeah, I think the secondary as a whole. How do you feel about Xavier McKinney? I mean, is he somebody that you feel like you can count on, throughout the season?
Yeah. So last year, obviously, with the unfortunate injury he had on vacation, I feel like as a captain this year, he's going to come back. He's going to come back pretty strong. He's going to come back committed, especially he'll have the green dot. That's to be expected. I'm pretty sure that he'll be calling the defense back there. But once again, next year, I don't know if they would entertain, paying him $14 million, $13 million. I'm not sure he's worth that much. It seems like the safety position is a spot in the NFL where you're kind of filling in as you go along. The Giants have a Dane Belton they drafted last year, another guy, Javarius Owens, that they picked up in the draft. And I do like Bobby McCain, who wasn't too far from you guys in Miami a couple of years and played with Washington. I like Bobby McCain a lot. I think he's going to actually play just as well or maybe even better than Julian Love.
Well, there you go, man. I love it. So I kind of wanted to go around the league. In the offseason, we saw where new quarterbacks, new teams, coaches are on the hot seat. What story has kind of stuck out to you the most right now?
Yeah, well, being in the tri-state area, you cannot, feel all the excitement from Jet fans with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it almost reminds me of your Buccaneer team with Brady. It's like the missing piece with the Bucs was just getting that quarterback. The Jets have almost mimicked that. They've gone all out with picking up other receivers, other players to surround themselves with Rodgers. I mean, they probably had a top 5 roster last year, the Jets. They just didn't have a quarterback. So I think with Rodgers, it's like all hands on deck. So I don't know if this doesn't work out. Does a Rob Saleh get canned next year? Does the GM get canned?
Right there,
the GM. So they've gone all in, and I expect them to make the playoffs. I mean, I expect them to fight with Buffalo for the division. So it's going to be fun to watch. But that stood out to me, obviously, with in terms of free agents. Stephon Gilmore, great pickup by the Cowboys. That's for the division. I mean, that just solidifies the other side with Diggs. So they're tough. It's just top 2 over my head. And Dalvin Cook, what's going to happen with Dalvin Cook? Where is he going to go?
Is it possible he comes to the Giants if things don't shake out with Barkley?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think he wants to go to a contender. Like, I think the Giants are a playoff contender, but I think Miami is a little bit better. And I think he's got his eyes on South Beach, Miami. And I don't think the Giants would go that route. I think either, Saquon plays under the tag or he doesn't. And I have a feeling if they don't have a deal, he's going to play under it. But I thought that myself. I said, well, could that be a situation where Dalvin were to come to the Giants? But I just don't feel it. And I haven't heard any rumblings about that either.
Yeah, when you talk about rumblings, you think about what could have been. I know a lot of Bucs fans were not happy that he wasn't drafted. He was right there and been picked up. The thing, it's kind of hit and miss with running backs though, because it seems like the running backs that your first round running backs. I mean, look at Zeke. I mean,
yes,
where's Zeke going to go right now?
I know.
Because, his first round pick. He's a guy you thought would have been a staple in Dallas for years to come, and here we are.
Yeah, and you know what, Gene? What I think with Zeke, he'll get through training camp. Somebody will pick him up. A couple of guys, somebody will get hurt. But Zeke is at at his point in the career, he's between the tackles. That 3rd and 1, you bring him in, get the tough yards. I don't think you could expect him to run outside too much anymore. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't have a problem if the Giants had an injury and you had to bring him in for that short yardage. Not an every down back, but to give him his 5 carries a game, I wouldn't have a problem with that short yardage. And I think that's maybe where Zeke was probably looking for. He's probably going to hit that team that has a couple injuries and they're going to grab him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So for you, what was your favorite move? Kind of going back to the Giants a little bit. What was your favorite move by the Giants? I mean, what stuck out to you as something that like, man, this is going to put us in a lot better position than we were last year, or this is an improvement from last year?
Yeah, so I would say Okereke right off the bat, but I got to go with Darren Waller only because the receiver market in free agency really wasn't there. I love Paris Campbell, but once again, he has to stay healthy too. Former second round pick. He can light it up, and he played with no quarterbacks. I think he's phenomenal, but he's got to stay healthy. So, and you could say that with Waller, but Waller's probably been a little more healthy than Campbell. But I think Waller's been he just brings it to a whole nother level. He could stretch the field, and I think with Bellinger and Waller both on the field, I mean, I think that opens up so many other things for so many other players. I think it opens it up for Bellinger. Waller's gonna garner a lot more attention, but I think the Waller signing is almost like getting a top flight receiver because he's going to play a lot of that role. He'll play in the slot. He'll go in motion. So he's going to be that hybrid tight end receiver.
Yeah. And the NFC is going to be a really interesting this year, with Tom Brady having moved on. The Bucs have picked up Baker Mayfield, and there's quarterback competition to see between him and Kyle Trask to see what happens.
And Gene, let me stop you there. I mean, this is a Buck show. Give me your thoughts on Baker Mayfield. What are you feeling?
If I can be honest, I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'll put it that way. I've never been a Baker Mayfield fan because you have to check up from the neck up, and there are times where the media gets to him or somebody gets to him and he gets in his feelings and he struggles at times, or he doesn't do well with adversity. And that the real good quarterbacks can deal with adversity. I'm hoping that, the change in climate coming from Cleveland to going to Carolina, then ending up with the Rams. And, he's got some really decent weapons here in Tampa with Mike Evans. You have a Chris Godwin, Rashad White. You've got some really nice pieces here.
And the tight end, Purnham, right? Payne Durham. I mean, that's going to be a nice weapon, the tight end.
So then you got Cade Otton, who is one of the other tight ends. They put some stuff around him to really help him. And I'm really curious to see what the new offensive coordinator can dial up. I think the Bucs struggled last year. I think a lot of that, you have to look at the offensive coordinator and the plays that were dialed up. And again, because of the inconsistency, you can't tell if it was Tom Brady who's getting older and he didn't have the zip that he had, or, was it the play calling, or was it and then you had some injuries.
The offensive line.
Ryan Jensen, who is just the anchor to that offensive line, was out. And it really showed, as the team was kind of going through the season. So you got a healthy team, no losses, no wins, and you're going into this new. You've got a new offensive coordinator. This is going to be a chance for Todd Bowles to really show, what kind of coach he really is. I had questions just based on some of the play calling, but again, maybe I might be too harsh of a critic. But let's kind of see this season what Todd Bowles can get dialed up.
Yeah, and call me crazy, Gene. I feel like Baker's matured. I mean, his interviews, he seems different. There's a different aura about him than years ago with Cleveland. I feel like he's a different guy now. I want to say he's been humbled, but I think he seems to be different. The way he's carrying himself.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. This is a great opportunity for him. It may be a 1 year he stops here and goes on. This is his chance to really build his resume with quality pieces, with a forward-thinking offensive coordinator, and putting this team in a position to win some games. If he can make that happen, that's really going to do wonders for his career moving forward. So I think it's in his best interest. I haven't seen any commercials. I think he's kind of focused on this. You've seen him at a lot of Rays baseball games, and he's really gelling with the community. And I'm really happy to see that. I think that he is taking this serious, just based on what you're seeing and how he's commenting, with the media. And I can tell you right now that Tampa, despite what you say about New York, Tampa has a rough media crowd here, and you'd almost have to just be part of it to see it.
Really?
Yeah. So it's gonna be interesting to see that. I'm happy that the Bucks have a healthy offensive line. With Tristan Wirfs, you've got Ryan Jensen,
Cody Mock, great pickup. The guy could play everywhere on the line.
Yeah. Have you really gotten to watch him? Like, have you gotten to watch any of his film before he was that somebody that the Jets had on their radar?
The Giants, yeah, absolutely. The Giants, I had him pegged. That's all right. That was that's sacrilegious. You accuse the Jets. Oh my goodness, can't mention Jets on the show. But no, actually, the Senior Bowl, I thought he really played well in the Senior Bowl and in the practices. And then I saw some clips of him, in college. But yeah, he was a guy that Giants had pegged. A lot of the the mock drafts had him with the Giants later on.
Yep. When he smiled and he doesn't have any front teeth, I'm like, this is the guy we need. He's somebody I would invite him out for. We would drink beer together.
Yeah.
If that opportunity ever came up.
Why do I picture him on one of those swamp boats in like the Everglades, just flying through, the alligators, the gators?
I don't know. You may see that, man. This guy is, I mean,
but he'll be doing like gator tours at Gatorland Zoo down there in Central Florida. I could tell you in the off season.
There you go. Have you been there? I love Gatorland.
I have years ago. Yep.
So for you, when you look at the NFC South, I don't know, did you get to watch the NYGiantsRush NFC South show?
I did. I was in the car. I did watch it. Yes.
Okay. So what did anything you take away from it? Any questions? I mean, everybody pretty much has the Saints pretty much running away with this. I'm personally not a huge Derek Carr fan.
Right.
I understand that, maybe he had 5 offensive coordinators, maybe this, maybe that, what if, who knows? Again, I think it's check up from the neck up, my friend. And you have to be mentally tough, and, you have to be able to get through some things. And there were opportunities for Carr to win games, and, it fell on his shoulders. That's why he was drafted. That's why he was brought in. That's why he's the quarterback. And again, he just mentally kind of broke down on times. And, the coach dials up the plays, players go out there and make the plays. But there have been a couple of times that I've watched Raiders games and I'm like, man, what is this guy doing? And you kind of have to question his constant decision-making. So yeah. I understand that, he's going to the Saints. The Saints have some questions with Alvin Kamara and the legal issues that he has. We don't know how long he's going to be out, and how that will affect the running game, or, how they do all this. And, talked a little bit about coaching prior to this, when I was talking about Todd Bowles. I think Dennis Allen is in the mirror with Todd Bowles. I mean, he's a guy, here's another guy who he's been a head coach before, and he hasn't been very successful, but he's got a nice squad. He's got nice pieces on both sides of the ball. We know he knows how to dial up a defense, but
right.
Again, can you get that team to the next level? And that's going to be, all eyes are on him. And so he would be another head coach that I'm looking at that could, you're kind of watching him to see what he does. He could be on the hot seat as well.
Yeah. These coaches don't get 4 years anymore. They get 3 years tops if they don't turn things around. And it is fascinating about the NFC South, about all the new quarterbacks. That's what I find fascinating about that division. Is now you got a Baker, now you got a Derek Carr. Is Ritter going to be the starter over in Atlanta?
Yeah, I believe he is.
So I mean, just all just the new changeover right now in the NFC South is going to be a little fascinating to watch.
Yeah, and I just kind of going around the league. Is there any teams that you think may be that surprising team out there?
There's always one, right, Gene? And last year, thankfully, the Giants were one of those teams. So there's always that one, the worst to first, or improvement to the, whoever didn't make the playoffs, made it. I don't know. Let me think about that for this year. I mean, the Ravens fell short of the playoffs. A healthy Lamar with something to prove, new contract, but. They could be a surprise team. I think they'll be back in the playoff hunt. How about you? Who do you think?
I'm looking at the Lions.
Yeah, the Lions are right on the edge, right? I mean, they could have made it last year. Yeah. I still feel like they're going to, for whatever reason, maybe it's just because of the Lions or if they're the Lions.
Yeah.
The hype has been so much with them. Are they gonna cross the threshold into that playoff, team? I don't know. They look like it on paper. Everything sounds good, but
Yeah.
it's almost like show me first. I want to see it first with the
I
Lions.
guess when you look at that division, you got
Yeah.
Green Bay minus Aaron Rodgers. You've got Minnesota minus Dalvin Cook, and I don't know what their situation is on defense. Minnesota, Green Bay, and Chicago. And again, these are teams that you couldn't, I mean, you couldn't hold everybody's roster up and tell me to pick who's going to win that division.
Right.
When you look
Right.
at all four of those teams. I don't know if there's somebody that kind of a team that stands out to you. I am like I said, I'm not sold on Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. And when I look at Green Bay, I look at Detroit, and I think Detroit, with the pieces that they have on defense and offense, I think they're in the best position to really make some noise in that division.
Yeah.
Barring any injuries.
Yeah, and if we're talking NFL, I mean, I got to throw the Jets in there. They have a good roster. So, I mean, they really do. I hate to say it. So, if I had to throw a team in there, to make the playoffs this year, make that big jump like everybody's expecting them to do, a jump, I say they're going to be like that 11-6, 12-5. I could see them. So, I think the Jets are going to make that next leap. That roster is good.
It's interesting because I look at the Bills. The Bills are still very dangerous.
They are.
Miami is a team that just doesn't get talked about enough. And I think Miami might be in a position to really make some noise as well. And, I've got a lot of friends that are Dolphins fans, and they're always in my ear about, the Dolphins are going to take that next step. Got a lot of nice pieces, man. And to me, that's another division that's up for grabs. There's not a dominant team.
I think the Bills have come back to earth a little bit.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. I feel like the Bills are now human. There's a possibility they found that Achilles heel, and they just can't. I feel bad for Bills fans. I feel bad for the Bills Mafia. I love, and it's so funny. Nikki did a show where they were talking about the fan bases. And that was great because they talked about, okay, what would you do with this? Would you hang out with this fan base? Would you take them to a barbecue or whatever? Bills fans, I've hung out with Bills fans. They're amazing. They really are. They're good people. And them and the Browns. The Browns have amazing fans as well. So but again, I'm not being biased, but Bucs fans, we know how to party. And if you ever go to a game in Tampa, What the Buck, they do a tailgate that's like Hall of Fame. It's a Hall of Fame tailgate.
Yeah, I wish I would have gone a couple of years ago, even the playoff game. But I know Ybor City, right? That's really big. Weekend of the games, right?
But I'm telling you, man, right before the game, What the Buck, they have barbecue, man. They've got liquor. I mean, you contribute to the foundation when you come in,
right?
And you make sure you tip the bartender, and you just you drink, and and the one thing that I loved about this is every time I've been to that tailgate, division rivals, it doesn't matter, they come in, everybody is treated the same.
That's it.
That's it. And again, that kind of goes back to the NFL for me because Tampa has just always been that bright spot for me. I love going to games. I get excited. I've been to great games, but I have to say, going to Germany was next level. So,
you made the trip. Very nice.
Yes. I'm here to tell you, man. In the future, if you ever, and you share this with your Giants friends, everybody, if you get to go to Germany, if the Giants ever get picked to go to Germany, not London, Germany, go. I mean, I don't care if you've got to, get an OnlyFans or whatever you got to do to drum up some money so you could go. You need to go to Germany. That was the greatest experience I've ever had. I have never drank that much beer. I'm telling you.
Yeah, well, I heard great stuff from Giant fans last year about the trip. So
Giants fans that went to Germany.
Yeah, I heard great stuff about it, and I see you have the English flag up there with the Bucs. So you attended both locations.
This is the UK Bucks. They funny story. Shout out to UK Bucks. Basically, back in the 80s, he had some people that came down to a Bucks game, and UK Bucks is the only team or the only organization that can use the Buccaneers logo
Really?
without getting in trouble.
Wow.
So they can't sell it over here in the US, but I've been to some tailgates with them, and I've been on their shows a few times. Great people, a lot of fun. And that's what I say, man. This is worldwide.
Yeah.
When you talk about football, there was a guy. We were in Scotland. We were in Edinburgh. We were going to the Royal Mile, and there's a guy with a Giants jersey on. He's on the bus, and his accent is so thick I can't understand what he's saying, half of what he's saying. But we're talking football,
yeah.
And that that's the kind of thing that I was like, you know what, this is what we need to be doing.
Yeah.
And I know there are a lot of shows out there and they only focus on one team, but every chance I've gotten to have somebody on from another team, I definitely want to do that, man, because I feel it's important. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Gene. It creates a bond. I mean, we're all football fans. We're all fanatics, and it's great to hear the other point of view and what everybody else thinks. But hey, it comes down to being respectful, right? As long as you're respectful to your opponent and you're tailgating and you bust chops a little bit, but you don't take it to the next level, it's all good, man. All good.
I don't know. I dislike Dallas that much. I'm dead serious.
I got a few friends that are Dallas, and we've gone to games, and I'm like, why is he going with me?
I'll tell you that, like division rivals. I mean, for me, my division rival is Atlanta. I would say 98% of Bucks fans, their division rivals is the Saints.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't have an issue with the Saints.
Okay.
But Atlanta, I've got a big problem with Atlanta. I hope they never win anything. Hope their Super Bowl trophy case is empty. And that's just
where does that come from, Gene? Where does that come from? That venom.
When the Bucks came into the NFC South, when they formed the NFC South, there was just a little rivalry, and then the Bucks went through a series of years where they were just like horrible. I mean, they couldn't hit on a draft pick. They couldn't hit on free agency. It was bad. It was just the lean years.
Yeah.
It was like anybody that was a Bucks fan from 2009 to I would say 2019 is a true Bucks fan. I don't care how you root for him. It doesn't matter. You are a true Bucks fan. You are an MVP if you've dealt with that. So it was during that time, Atlanta was getting good. You had some of your players, Roddy White and, Tony Gonzalez was on that team and some of these other guys. And they were just, they would win, but they were so delusional that, they've been to all these Super Bowls, never won one. And they were just like, I don't know, like Cowboy fans light. Our year. We're the boys, really? That whole mentality. They would come on and try, fans would come on here and troll and I'm like, okay, cool. That's, do your thing, whatever. But I've just never liked Atlanta. I don't like the city. I just don't like anything about Atlanta. Seriously.
Right. Okay.
But Dallas takes it to a whole nother level.
Yeah. I know that. Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter where you are in the United States of America. Right. There's one, if not 50, obnoxious Dallas Cowboy fans.
Yeah. Gene, I grew up a Yankees fan and I still am, although I'm not a diehard like I used to be. I live and die with the Giants more than the Yankees, but the Dallas Cowboys are like the Yankees. That logo's everywhere. You can find them anywhere. And I will say this as a Yankee fan, they carry that arrogance just like a Yankee fan does. And although they haven't won much other than divisions, they carry it like they have. And that to me, that's pretty unbelievable that they walk around like that. I give them credit. I mean, they walk around with their head up in the air, but they haven't done much.
Yeah. They weren't alive for the majority of the World Series they won, but
yeah, the ongoing joke, right, Gene? They're on VHS tapes.
No, that was Dallas, bro. That was Dallas.
We're not even on DVDs, and DVDs are gone. We're all digital now. They can't even say DVDs.
Exactly.
VHS. You got to sit there with the pencil and wind it up to the best parts of the game.
Exactly, man. That's just how I feel about it, man. I have fun. There are a few fans that I can tolerate. I think there are a couple of fans that actually follow me. They're Dallas fans, and they every so often I'll throw a shot out there, or lay a meme out there or something.
Yeah.
Because I hear somebody talk about we're them boys and we're coming back and this is our year, and oh my goodness,
Yeah,
please
but
stop.
that's a testament to you, Gene. You put out good content, you keep it real, and you got some great takes. So I mean, that's why they come back.
I have fun with this, man. I'm not right. I would say 80% of the time I'm not right, but I have fun doing it. It's like,
well, it's the rest of us. We're all like that. You're no different than the rest of us know-it-alls.
So I like, that's why I say I like certain podcasts. I don't watch anything mainstream. I don't watch ESPN. I don't watch CBS or NFL Network.
Right.
I get my stuff from locals. So like there's a lot of stuff that I was just kind of reading up on, educating myself with the Giants, because I knew that I was going to be, talking with you and we were going to talk a little bit about the team. But there are certain writers that I don't really care for. I would rather lean towards a podcast. I would rather lean towards, somebody, independent writers, and get my information, because they have a little bit more invested. They have more to prove that they're legitimate, just like these other jerks that, they take their cues from somebody who's sitting off on the sidelines writing stuff for them. Yeah. So, that's where I get my information. That's why, it's cool to listen to you guys, and, whatever shows you guys have on, just, putting them in the rotation. And, like at work, I'm, normally working on spreadsheets and stuff. So, there are times where I'll just, put on YouTube, close the phone and just go to work, and just listen. And that's where I get a lot of my stuff from.
I feel the same way, Gene. Like the old saying, you got to peel back the onion, right? Everything's on the surface with mainstream media when it comes to sports. When you go to ESPN for your team, you're going to get some hot takes, you're going to get some blurbs, but they don't peel back the onion to go a little bit deeper on the reasons why things are the way they are. So I think going to that beat writer that's in the locker room and really get you the meat and potatoes. I mean, that's where it's at, and that's where I'm like you. I get a lot of that inside info from the guys that I trust that are really calling it down the middle and peeling back the onion.
Yeah. And, we were talking a little bit about sports betting, and I know that this has brought a lot more people into paying attention, trying to get a little bit more insight on teams and players than what you've seen in the past few years. And I think it's really kind of ramped up a lot more, where people are really starting to like dial in, this is what's going on. This is what's happening. Not these rumors, not this is what I think is happening, but, just trying to dial it in and get down to what you really need. And I think that's really kind of elevated a lot of people's games as well. I think you like your show, you guys have sports gambling, and you guys have the
fantasy.
There you go. Thank you.
With Nikki. Yeah. Yep. That's become such a big part of the NFL. It's almost like you wonder about the little kids growing up. They have all these jerseys, but they're not locked in maybe to the one team. So that's the fear I have. You're not getting that kid that's growing up as the Buc fan, as the Giant fan, blue and blue, 100% no matter what. I want the jersey. I want Justin Fields. I want whoever it might be, but I want the jersey, and they're rooting for the players. And I think that's the little change. They're rooting for players, and wherever they go, that's their guy, and it's building that fantasy team. It's starting at an early age. Justin Jefferson, right? I mean, he's the hot one. So,
it's interesting that you say that, because like Jameis Winston was the quarterback here in Tampa, and I was a huge supporter of Jameis Winston. I wanted him to be successful here in Tampa. I just, with the numbers that he was putting up, he was so close to 20,000 yards before he left here and went to New Orleans. And he had some jerseys, and you know what? He's not on the team. Those jerseys are sitting back there. Plus, he's playing for division rivals, so it's kind of, I think I may have posed this question, and I wanted to hit you up with that question about wearing jerseys of players that are no longer with the team. Was that you I was talking with?
Yeah, you were. You put it out there to us, and also I think NYGiantsRush. Yeah, exactly. Good question.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think Jameis Winston is the only jersey that I own that's a player that's, still active in the league, but He's on a division rival. He's playing for another team.
You're not pulling out your creamsicle Leroy Selman jersey this year?
I actually have a Doug Williams. I'm not,
nice.
And while we're talking, because this is a safe zone, I can say whatever I want to here. Creamsicle, not a fan, not looking for it's a lot of trauma.
Okay.
A lot of
the memories, right? You bring back those early memories of those seasons. I hear you. I hear you.
You think about it. You get everybody gets together, gets in the car. We go to a game. Got to see these hot bleachers with the hot metal bleachers and the back of your leg and stuff. This was before they started extorting everybody and making everybody buy stadium food and beer.
Oh yeah.
Kind of bring your own stuff in. But now for your own safety, you can't do that anymore. You have to buy stuff from here.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just those times that, getting to hang out with the family and stuff like that. And it just kind of sucked that the team just would lose. They would lose.
Great.
Having to watch Barry Sanders, having to watch Walter Payton, having to watch some of Randy Moss, having to watch these guys just roll through and just ball out every time Tampa played them. So creamsicle, I get the nostalgia that some people love it, but I would say the majority of those people were fans after the Bucs won the Super Bowl, either the first or the second one, and that's why the creamsicle sits with them a different way. But there are some listeners out there that were around the time I was, and again, we're glad to see it coming back. But for me, it's just too much trauma. I just hated it. I mean, Green Bay, and there were games like in November when Green Bay fans would infest our stadium, and it was just bad because the weather is nice. So this is a vacation for them. They can come down, beat the Bucs, enjoy the weather, and then go back to Green Bay. And that's kind of what it was. So,
well, you know what, Gene? It's all about the marketing, the branding, right? The NFL is going to make a ton of money with those uniforms, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, I really, I would have probably been more for it had Tom Brady been able to rock the creamsicle. I probably could have overlooked some of that, but
could you imagine if they won that to exercise the demons? If Brady if they wore those uniforms in the Super Bowl, that would have been awesome.
That would have been. But again, I mean, what if it was just like
this ain't your daddy's Bucs, right? This ain't your daddy's Bucs in those creamsicle uniforms, and Brady wins it.
So I want to ask you before we have a few more minutes here. But I wanted to ask you, who are some of your favorites? Let me see, go top 5 from the bottom to the top 5 favorite Giants.
Oh, wow. Top 5 favorite Giants. Well, you got to put LT up there.
Is that LT is my number 1.
Yeah. Favorite Giant, probably LT. But I'll tell you, and this sounds crazy, close number 1 is Carl Banks. And the reason is Carl Banks played with Harry Carson and LT. If he played with the Giants today or with a linebacking crew that didn't have those two guys, he would probably be a Hall of Famer right now. So I always rock my Carl Banks jersey at many Giants games, and I show him the love. And besides, he's the analyst on the radio. Carl is so smart. I mean, he could be a coach, and people have asked him, would he ever consider that? And he just likes doing the broadcasting, doesn't want to put that much time into the day-to-day being a coach. But love Carl Banks.
That's
and my heart goes out to him because he played with Harry and LT.
Yeah. So Carl Banks is number 2 for you.
I would say LT, Harry Carson. Yep.
And then for me, it's Hostetler.
Oh, Hostetler with the Giants?
Yeah. Jeff Hostetler.
Yeah, I would put Sims ahead of Hostetler, though.
I hate Sims, but that's for another time. I loved Haas. Haas was like, he was so gritty. It was just about him, watching him. I forgot it was a Christmas or Thanksgiving. One of those two. I was younger, and just watching Haas play, I was just like, wow, I like this guy. So he would be my number 2.
It was good. Gene, it's funny you mention that because when the Giants won the Super Bowl and they came back and Ray Hanley was the head coach, Phil Simms was recovered, but Hanley continued to start Jeff Hostetler. And I was at the Tampa Bay Giants game at the old Sombrero, and I remember seeing Simms warming up on the sideline and Hostetler. And at the time, internet wasn't around. I was just starting. Hardly, you didn't get tweets and things. So I was wondering who would start. And Hostetler did start, and he beat the Bucs that day. But it was very strange seeing Simms benched for Hostetler by Hanley that following year.
Yeah. Okay. So I like your pick though, because Banks would have been my number 3.
Okay.
So who is your number 3?
So number 3, so we're going LT, we're going Carl Banks, and then we're going Phil Simms. Those are my 3. And then if you had to put 4, I got to put Strahan in there.
Yes.
Without a doubt. Got to put
Strahan would have been my 4th. And you know what, I probably should have thrown this in there. We got to throw coaches in there too. You have to, because
we could do a separate thing. So if I had to go 5, if we're talking players, I got to throw Eli in there. So Eli would be my number 5. Maybe he could be 4, but maybe Eli's 4. I would do Eli 4 and then Strahan 5. I guess that's my favorites. I'm not saying, they
wrong answer here.
Yeah, I mean, those are my favorites. Listen, without Eli, Giants won 2 Super Bowls with him. But I mean, my favorite players, yeah.
So JPP would be my number 5.
Yeah. Oh, he's right there. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And to your jersey question, I would still rock a JPP jersey. He won with the Giants. To me, he's still a Giant. And when he comes back years later, he'll be revered as a Giant.
There you go, man.
But it is cool that he won a Super Bowl with the Bucs, so that's awesome too.
Yeah, I was, he was the heart and soul, man. He was so
really.
He was so important to this team. And I don't know about, how much you know about him as far as in the locker room for the Giants, but he was so I can't really put what it was about him. He was important in the locker room. I'm gonna put it that way. And he wasn't like boisterous or out there or anything like that, but
I know what you mean. Yeah.
It was like him and Ndamukong Suh were like quiet leaders. These are guys that you're like, okay, they're here. You got to respect them. And, they were an important part of, the team as well. So, I know that had to have been tough, losing JPP, the way JPP left New York. I mean, I'm sure that how did fans react to that?
We hated it. I mean, Gettleman comes in, he gets rid of him, and we had no pass rush. So the whole thing was the Giants were going to a 3-4, and they didn't want to play him at linebacker. That was the talk, like on the outside. But just terrible. Giant fans hated it. That's one of the knocks against Gettleman was getting rid of JPP.
And it's funny because I've got a lot of friends that are Carolina Panthers fans, and they hate Dave Gettleman. Hate him. And he takes unnecessary risks that you should really kind of think things through, and some of his talent evaluation hasn't been the best.
Well, he comes from the personnel side early in the mid-90s with the Giants, and his draft picks, when you look at McKinney, look at Dexter Lawrence, he's had some good ones, he's had some bad ones too. For instance, DeAndre Baker, I heard a story, he didn't even interview him face to face. He basically just went off his tape, didn't even fly to see him, didn't even talk to him, and they drafted him. And there was underlying circumstances with DeAndre. He wasn't guilty of what he was accused of, but there was a practice problem with him, not putting 100% in. I mean, that was going back to Georgia. So there were a lot of negatives. And I think with Joe Shane, I mean, they want guys that want to play, that love the game, that want to practice, that want to, be the best. And I think that's the difference.
So, I mean, for you, was that, let's put your GM hat on for a minute. Is that something that's important to you? That is practice, or is it that production on the field, or do you have to draw that balance, or where does that all fit in for you as far as, his, questioning his practice habits?
Well, I think you got to want a guy that loves the game of football, that wants to put the time in. I think if somebody loves the game, as you and I played growing up, I think you want to practice. Yeah, practice isn't fun, but you want to be out there. You want to ball. You want to play ball. And as you know, the way the NFL is, you're not doing two-a-days anymore. No. They can't tackle. They can't bring you to the ground. So practice isn't what it was back in the 90s or early 2000s. It's changed. And that's a problem we see in the league with the tackling. The tackling until you get to October is horrendous.
Yeah.
Because basically September is the extension of the preseason. They're finally able to hit. And now by October, they're kind of got the rust off.
And you're spot on with that. And that's what I've always said, because I know that I guess fans are different. Fans are like, we're in a microwave society. Everybody wants it like this right now. It's got to happen right now. I've always believed that you have to go at least 6 games in to get an idea of what your team is going to look like throughout the season. Barring, and that's, it's not a cold hard fact, but if there are no injuries and you have your team and everybody's together through 6 games, by game 6, you get an idea of what your team is going to look like.
Yeah, you better be 4-2 or 3-3 in the talk. At that point before you turn it up, right?
Exactly. So otherwise you're in
Yeah.
trouble if that's the case.
Yeah, you're hoping the other teams are just as rusty as you on defense. And somebody's got to pull one out.
So to me, that's an important part of it all too. Is just hey, what are you doing to build this team up? You have to show market improvement because again, you can win. You could go 3-0. You can go 4-0. I don't care. I've seen teams do that, and then they torpedo down to nothing.
Oh.
They're just that doesn't really give you the whole picture. But if you see a team and they start out slow and then they start picking up momentum and then they get a run of wins, hey, that's a hot team. That's a team to watch, barring any injuries. They should be somebody that you should really be looking out for.
Yeah, absolutely. We always see that. That is you're dead on, getting hot at the end, right? Not peaking too early.
Yep. That's kind of a philosophy. And then with draft picks, people are pissed off about draft picks because they don't come out on fire after the first season or the first 2 seasons. And I'm like, there are players. I was talking to a scout and he kind of broke it down to me. He said, you got to wait till at least year 3.
I was just going to say that. Yep.
Minimum year 3. There are some that are late bloomers and it takes them a little bit longer. Look at Geno. Look at Geno in Seattle.
Right.
I'm hoping that he has continued success. I hope this isn't a one-hit wonder for him the last year. I hope that he can, turn it all around. But that's a really good example. Getting the right scheme, right coaches, and you have the right talent around you, and then you get to go out and really show what you can do because you're working in a scheme that's built for your strengths. Like Danny Dimes, he's in a scheme right now that's built to his strengths.
I agree.
And I think as I've been watching him, his decision making has gotten better. I think it took him a little bit longer to catch on to the speed of the game. And I think, this is a year that he's somebody I'll keep an eye on. There's always a few players throughout the league that I'm like, man, I want to see what they do.
Yep.
And he's one of those players. I want to see what he can do, especially in that division that you're in. That's a tough division.
It sure is. And a guy like Andrew Thomas has helped Daniel Jones where he could sit in the pocket and not have to worry about his blind side. So they finally found, a left tackle, and that's helped. But you bring up a player like Dexter Lawrence, let's say. First couple of years, he's played good, but he's taken it to a whole nother level. You talk about the coaching. You bring in a guy like Andre Patterson from Minnesota, who now plays Dexter over the zero, over the nose tack, over the center, and it's a whole different thing. Now he's pushing through. He's a bona fide pass rusher. He's like an Aaron Donald light. He's not Aaron Donald, but he's like an Aaron Donald light, and he's playing like we all thought he would early on. But I think the fact that he's playing to his strengths and Andre Patterson sees that has a lot to do with these guys getting to that next level.
I to ask you about that. So. Where they were using him, the way they were utilizing him has changed from where he was in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And you can, like you mentioned, you could tell a marked difference, on what he's doing. Mm-hmm. So, to me, that's what I kind of go back to. There are some coaches that are stubborn assholes and they just want to, they're going to force this peg in this round hole, this square round hole. And this is my scheme and this is how I want it run. They're not saying, oh, wait a minute. This guy is light on his feet. I think he can beat some of these offensive linemen. Let's move him over here, or let's play this scheme and we can get more out of him. And again, there's a lot of ego in the NFL. There's a lot of ego, whether it's coaches or players or whatever. But the coaches that succeed are the ones that can make adjustments.
Absolutely. And you saw Jason Garrett with the Giants, and Giant fans know this. They played 11 personnel, 1 tight end, 1 running back, majority of the time. Hardly any motion, no creativity. So Kafka and Dable have brought in the mismatches, the creativity, and to create opportunities for Jones and Barkley. So I think that's been the big difference too. I mean, the NFL, when you talk about the players, right, Gene? The athleticism is very close. These guys aren't far apart, but when it comes to between the ears and the scheme, that makes the difference.
Got to check up from the neck up, man. That's what it's all about. And you'll always hear me say that. And there are players that they check all the boxes physically. And you pass the eye test. But when it comes down to, mentally, do they have it? There are a lot of players that just, there are some players their heart isn't in it, or there are other players that this I'm not playing to my strengths, and I'm kind of limited based on the scheme I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, and there's a lot that goes into it. I
Yeah.
know I can't generalize everybody under that, but just some of the players that I've seen that have gone to new places and just balled out. I mean, that's kind of what I see as the reason that this happens,
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. They get the opportunity, right? And the chips just fall in place for them. We're quick to label receivers of being busts, but maybe they didn't have the quarterback, right? I mean, it all comes down to the quarterback play.
And I think
Got to get them the ball.
I think a big part of that is coaching too.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
won't say coaching, I want to say teaching.
Mhm,
Because
mhm.
there are receivers that can't run routes. They can't run clean routes. They round off their routes or they quit on their routes. And there's somebody, and I cannot believe I'm mentioning this clown's name, the quitter, Antonio Brown,
Okay.
one of the best route runners
Sure.
that I just have physically gotten to see. The
Mhm.
guy was just incredible. To get to see him, it was just like a work of art. But again, he just, after that Vontaze Burfict hit, he's just hasn't been right since.
Yeah, hasn't been right.
That's for another time.
Mhm.
And you get to watch players like Jerry Rice, and you look at Jerry Rice's route running, his football acumen. It's just incredible to watch him run a route.
Absolutely.
Never quit on a route, never rounded a route. He ran crisp routes. Whatever the route was, it was crisp. It wasn't, I'm gonna jog out here. I know the ball's not coming to me. And there were times where there was like one quarter where he never got the look. Nobody ever looked his way, but he still ran those routes like he's going to get the ball.
Yeah.
You don't find a lot of receivers that play the game that way anyway.
Yeah, and you look at a Justin Jefferson, and I don't hear this talked about enough, probably because we're old, Gene. But back in the 80s, John Jefferson was a hell of a receiver for the Chargers. That's his father. I mean, what better guy to learn from than his dad, John Jefferson, about running routes growing up as a kid?
Yeah.
So, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree for us old guys that remember John Jefferson to see how Justin plays. I mean, amazing.
Yeah. And that's I have to go back to that, man, because even like Mike Evans is by far one of my favorite Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He just is because of what he does.
Hell of a player. Yeah.
Yeah. And just watching him, there are times like when he first came in the league, that guy's route running was horrible.
Really?
Just
know that.
Was, but he worked on his game. He got better and better and better. And then when you think about, who was throwing the ball to him, he said Johnny Manziel throwing the ball to him.
Yeah.
Cade McCown. What is the other guy? He's just had some subpar quarterbacks that have been throwing the ball to him, and he's still going over 1,000 yards every season. His rookie season. I mean, it just shows you. Mike Glennon, that's the guy I was thinking about.
Well, we Giant fans remember that name.
Yeah, the guy he's fleeced a lot of teams out of money. So there is that.
Yeah, but I thought he played well for the Bucs. Actually, I thought he did a decent job for you guys.
He was decent. He was serviceable. This is one of those. He's a journeyman quarterback that I would be comfortable putting him behind a starter, but he's not a guy that I would want to hand the keys to my car to. So
right,
it's one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But dude, I can't believe we sit here and talk for an hour.
That's great.
Kind of went around the league. We talked about a little bit of everything, man. And
I mean, we didn't even touch on everything. We still got other things, but we're up to an hour already. But yeah, absolutely.
No, man, it's just crazy. I really want to get you on one more time before the season starts, man, and just kind of get updates on where your team is at. Anything that you've seen in the league that hey, maybe it might be worth talking about. This may put this team in a better position. So, last question for you, and it's totally off the wall. Emily, our resident expert.
I like it. Eric Gray, she mentioned.
Yeah. Who's a better chance of making the playoffs, the Bucs or the Giants? And again, please don't take this the wrong way, but I think there's more talent in your division. I mean, as far as familiarity, Dak Prescott has been there forever. Jalen Hurts, since he's had that position, he's there. Everybody is pretty much familiar with everybody else. The Giants, like we talked about earlier, you talked about it, familiarity. These are all things that, work. So this is going to be a pretty close. I think there's not going to be a runaway winner in your division. And because you guys all play each other tough, and I'm expecting the Commanders, whatever, I don't know what their new name's going to be, or after this lawsuit or whatever goes away. But Washington, we'll just call them Washington for now. I like Washington Generals personally, but they didn't listen to me. But
I like the pigskins.
Yeah, that could have worked too. Yeah, because of the hogs
part of it.
Yeah, the hogs that were in the stands.
But then you're going to get all the pig protesters that don't want to, defamation against pigs. That will be a problem.
Yeah, PETA. Yeah, like have to deal with those clowns.
Right.
Anyway, so for your division, it's a little bit tighter, and it's going to be a little bit more of a rivalry. Whereas in Tampa, or not Tampa, but the NFC South, it's wide open. I mean, you don't know what Carolina's going to do. You don't know.
I agree with you. I think the Giants have a better roster maybe than the Bucs, but I think the Bucs have a better chance of actually winning that division. I think the Giants are going to go for a wild card. I think it comes down to Dallas and Philly. I really do. Yeah. And we maybe get 2 wild cards out of the division again.
And that's kind of where I was going with this. I think that, with the talent the Bucs have, if they can make the most of the offensive coordinator can improve this offense from last year, I really believe that this is the Bucs could, they could go into the division and win some games and actually go to the playoffs.
Yeah. To your question earlier, Gene, that the Bucs could be that team. They're not being talked about. So I think, and they still have a good roster. They just, the questions are on Baker, but I think people will be surprised. He's gonna reel it in this year. I really believe that in that division.
All right. Well, I want you to, before we roll out of here, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. And I want you to promote the hell out of everything you guys are doing right now. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it. So it's NYGiantsRush for all your Giants content. We have shows Monday night, NYGiantsRush, obviously all Giants. On Wednesday, 8 o'clock, which just started, is Rush Hour with Nikki and Dan. They go around the league, fantasy betting, fantasy football, sports betting, and also NFL talk. Tonight's AFC South. And then Rush Rambles tomorrow night with Adriana, who just came on board. We'll just ramble on various topics throughout the league and some Giants stuff. But I'm Giants Carb Crush. I strictly put Giants content out at Twitter, so I try to keep it just mainly Giants. And I come up with some creative stuff during the off season. How much is a beer at MetLife Stadium? How many? What's the seating capacity? Some cool stuff I'll put on there. That what would you think if this happened or whatnot? So the dead time of year, got to fill in the blanks.
There you go. That's what I'm saying.
Before training camp.
Hey. Tell Nikki again, thank you. I appreciate the follow and, hanging out and listening to her. And she is the jewel of Jersey, so tell her to keep doing her thing. And, it's so funny. I think me and her were going back and forth because some guy was criticizing her because she's a female, but she knows more about football than that clown that she was going back at it with. And, and I've always said this, and I still believe this, as males go for the throat if they can't win an argument. I don't know what it is, but if a female is being called names, that's like a badge of courage right there, because the guy can't win an argument. And to me, bad mouthing somebody is not winning. It's not an argument to me. It's bad mouthing somebody. So tell her, make sure she knows to hang in there and keep doing her thing.
Oh yeah, Nikki's a sweetheart. She's a team player, and she's all about all about having a great time with all the listeners and people that come on the show. So a lot of fun.
All right, my friend. And again, this is Gene at Buc What You Heard. Like and subscribe. If this is the first time you've been on, I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to, I never talk about like and subscribe. I need to stop being lazy and try to get more people to listen. So, again, you are listening to the most unprofessional podcast in Bucs Nation, Buc What You Heard. Doing our thing. And again, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Gene, by the way, this was very professional, more professional than you got me ready for. I was expecting something even different. You were very professional. You caught me off guard. I was expecting beer bottles thrown at the screen, a lot of F-bombs. I don't think you dropped one F-bomb.
Well, there was nothing that triggered me. Now, if there had been somebody like from Dallas or something, if something had happened where it's something that triggered me, I'll get on the rant and they'll just flow.
All right, so in season, that's when we're going to hear a lot of this after the game. All right, there we go.
Yeah, be sure to follow. And again, your listeners are always welcome. This is a safe zone. I won't let anybody get bad mouthed or anything like that while they're in here. I mean, it's fun banner is okay, but this is a safe zone. I won't tolerate that from anybody.
Same by us. Thank you.
All right. Well, maybe we can collab or something like that later on. But again, thank you so much. to all the people that were out there, thank you for checking us out. And we'll be doing this again next week. Who knows who we'll have on? And we are